Before I get into the details of our sponsors and how we can engage with them during the pandemic, I do just want to offer a few personal notes. Now is the time for us to be patient. I'm lucky, and you're lucky if you're one of the people that just get to be at home during this time, whether you're working or you're not at home. And I am thankful every day for every single person who decides to go to work because they're essential. And how awesome is it that cannabis is listed as essential? And we need to protect those that are helping us through this time. And so all of these safety measures that the advertisers and most of the dispensaries and growers and processors and really everyone in the state has put in place is to not only protect us, but to protect the people that work there. And we need to open our hearts to that and have a lot of patience as we're experiencing longer wait times, shorter hours, maybe you can't find what you want. We just need to have a little patience and love for people who are literally putting their life on the line so that we can get medical cannabis. So I appreciate all of our sponsors. I appreciate everyone who is out there working so hard to make sure life is as normal as possible for each of us. For Herbology, now's the time to start to pre-order using their website. This allows the team to fulfill your order quickly and keep those wait times I was talking about less, and allows the team to maintain a safe distance in between everyone, like we're supposed to be doing. Their number one priority is the safety of you as well as their team members. And so if you have questions, you can call the Westminster store at 443-487-4552 or the Gaithersburg store at 240-654-0911. And you can visit myherbology.com for additional details. So before you go, always make sure you check the website to make sure the hours haven't been changed or nothing's been changed since the last time that you visited there. Evermore is working hard to ensure that each transaction is safe for both the customer and the employee. And to help facilitate this, they're asking you to order online, use CanPay so we're not distributing cash back and forth. And they're working hard to make sure that we have the medicine we need. You can visit them at evermorecompany.com for all the details on how to pick up your orders. The team at Pure Life Wellness is working overtime to ensure that they're able to remain open during the pandemic and to continue to serve the community. To do this, they've placed some new procedures in place. So they're encouraging you to please order online so that they can have your order ready for you, and that restricts the amount of time that we're around one another. You can sign up for CanPay, which allows you to use your card, as well as they have a new debit system. So you can go in, pay by card, have your medicine waiting for you, and go out and be done in a matter of just a few minutes. Now, just remember though, as I've mentioned, wait times are a little bit longer because they're not allowed to have as many people in the building if you've been to their city location. So bring your patients, wash your hands, and order before. Thank you, Pure Life. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can visit them at purelifebaltimore.com. As a result of COVID-19, we ask that if you need to obtain medicine, order online or call them at 301-703-2400 to place a call-ahead order. All orders must be placed using our online ordering service on our website or by calling us. Additionally, please allow 1 hour to process the order after placing it prior to come picking it up. While we do anticipate longer than usual waits, we encourage patients to wait in their vehicles or to take advantage of curbside delivery. While visiting inside the facility, all patients will be required to maintain social distancing upwards of 6 feet from all other patients and from all other staff members. We have indicated areas on the floor showing where to stand and have separated seating in our reception area accordingly. We ask all patients to abide by these new protocols so that we can continue to safely service all patients in our community. As always, the health and safety of our patients is of our utmost importance. And if you have any questions or concern, you can email them at info@peakereleaf.com or call them at 301-703-2400. And some other notable items, their hours are 10 to 8 p.m. every day. And you can sign up for their newsletter or text messages just to make sure that you're getting all the most up-to-date information. So we all know that we can't gather right now. And so Josh and the team at the Cannabis Science Conference have worked to reschedule the Cannabis Science Conference East, and it is June 29th through July 1st. You can visit CannabisScienceConference.com. Use the code MJ25 to get 25% off your tickets for the June show. So I'm excited. I need something to look forward to, and that's what I'm looking forward to. So come geek out with me at the Cannabis Science Conference this summer. I met James last spring of 2019, and despite being in the best shape and health and weighing the least amount I've weighed, I still was extremely sick, anxious, and depressed. And we've spent the last several months working through finding out what food works best for me, what meditation and mindfulness practices work best for my anxiety and my depression. And my work with him has been transformational this past year. And I have called upon a lot of that work and the skills that I've learned with him during the COVID-19 pandemic to try to keep myself as mentally healthy as I can. So if you have any questions for James, you can give him a call. You can email him at james@sparkvisionnow.com. You can also check him out at James Hyland Coaching on Facebook. He's been doing some few movement classes for free, so go ahead and check them out. Maybe I will see you online. Thank you again to all of our sponsors, especially during times that are so challenging, for you being a part of the show and the community and making sure that we still get to connect with one another. Thank you. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Conversations with Maryjane. It's Jill Frankelli. I'm your host. I'm coming to you from my home studio that we just made just a few weeks ago. Really, we just rearranged my office. It sounds fancier to say I have a home studio now. It is Tuesday, March 31st, but you are listening to this Friday, April 3rd. So what's happening with the world? All anyone's talking about is a pandemic. So yeah, just to acknowledge a few things, because you know my whole theory about documenting history and stories. So that's what this is all about. Our show with medical cannabis and documenting the hows and what's about it, especially right now, going through this pandemic. Yeah, so it's the day before April. I think if you're in the cannabis world, you're really excited for April 2020. The whole month was going to be 420. Had a lot of fun things planned. Really cool episodes that were going to be put out during this month, and a couple of events, including a film premiere for a documentary about PTSD. Steve Elmore created it. Lives in Maryland, and so we were going to do that at the end of April in the Cannabis Science Conference and the National Cannabis Festival. There's a couple of festivals happening in Maryland, but all of that is no more. Well, it's postponed until a later date. And so I've had some feelings about that today, and maybe wrapped up in sadness when you think about maybe all the things that we're missing at this time. But I think you're still going to see a lot of fun and exciting things happening if that's what we look for. And if we focus on those things as we go through this challenge together. Last week, or maybe the week before, I had talked about how I was really struggling in the morning. Lots of time crying before I even got out of bed because, my phone is laying beside my bed. And so the first thing I do, I pick it up, and, every tweet, every Facebook message, everything, I was just reading that, and I just was feeling all the sadness in the world. And so I made a post, and I had brought James on the show because I knew I needed a little bit of help in figuring out what to do during this time. And so I wanted to update you on that. And so one of the things that I said was I was going to start to put a positive intention in my head before I went to bed about the next day so that I could wake up with that in my mind. And so I've started to do that. And so something I know, and I want to point out, was this was not a switch overnight for me. And so it wasn't until yesterday was the first day after posting that. So it was like 10 days ago, I made that post when we released James' episode. So 10 days of every night I went to bed and I said, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to feel great and I'm going to have a great day. And you know, it just wasn't happening until yesterday. I woke up and I felt something different when I woke up. I didn't have a desire to look at my phone immediately. I didn't have a desire to check in to see what was happening in the world. My first desire was to write down what I was grateful for. And that's what I did yesterday morning. And I wrote down what I was grateful for, and it really shocked me, some of the things. I was grateful for a nap that I took on Sunday. And it was like one of those naps that it wasn't a nap because I had anxiety and I was trying to reset. It was just a beautiful nap. I'm grateful for how hard my wife is working. We're both entrepreneurs, and so we're having to pivot very quickly to do things. And I'm so grateful that she's trying to figure out what's next as this goes on. I am grateful for my homeless and hungry friends and the strength that they give me as they're scared, but they're still leading with such optimism. And I was grateful to spend time with them yesterday, as brief and as quick and as rushed as it was, but to be in their presence always makes me feel better. And I was also grateful for an article that was sent to me. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about this article, and then if anyone wants me to send it to them, you can DM me. So my entire last 3 years have been wrapped up in becoming physically and mentally strong. You know, I had a lot of weight to lose. I was very sick. So these last 3 years, I've spent my entire life getting better, trying to become healthy so I didn't die early because of all the complications that come from being diabetic, from being overweight, from just being generally unhealthy. So that's what I've done. And I've done a lot of meditation and learning about it and working with shamans and working with coaches and all of this. And so if you are a person who's done this the last 3 years, and now you're given all of this time during a day to work on yourself, right? There's a lot of time. So what am I going to do? I just started to make big goals. By the end of this, I want to be able to run, I think, I was ready for quarantine to be several months. So I was like, I want to be able to run 6 miles consecutively without stopping by the end of this. I want to have read a book a week. So I started to make all of these things. I think I even started to think about, could I learn a language? Maybe we should take piano lessons from YouTube, or maybe someone's doing that. And all I did every day for these 2 weeks was I did some work. But I sat there and felt bad about all the things I wasn't accomplishing, all the overwhelmed feelings, all of this. And so I basically had made this time a time to improve myself. Hardcore, going at it, balls to the wall, whatever. And I thought, that's the way I'm going to get through this. I'm just going to come out of this bright and shiny, and it's going to be no pandemic happened to Jill. But as we found out on this past Friday, that's just not sustainable. I can't bury my head in the sand of personal development and improvement and goals to help me deal with what is something nobody knows what to do. So Colleen sent me this article, and it was basically, the gist was like, now's not the time to make yourself a project. Now's the time to do the things that you know, right? Like you should, for me, I should still be exercising, meditating. I should be living my daily life, but I shouldn't, for me, shouldn't be filling my days up with non-stop development and growth, because it was being very counterproductive and was hurting me, because I, wasn't in a place to do those things. All extra energy, all extra everything is being spent figuring out how to deal with the emotions of something that in minute by minute basis feel like we're being punked. Like April Fool's is tomorrow. Not one person better play a fucking joke. Like whatever, I'm gonna be pissed. Like I just feel like we're already living in such a crazy time that my mind is constantly having to remind myself that there's this new normal, there's these new things happening. And so as I was filling it with so much distraction, I think that's what was causing it to become such a big deal for me. Why I was becoming mobilized. I don't think immobilized sounds positive. Paralyzed by fear and not being able to do anything. So I read this article. I made a few, even so much so, and I may have mentioned this, but obviously you guys know I love blunts. And I smoke a lot of fucking blunts. And this is a disease of the lungs. And so I literally just tried to stop all cannabis consumption outside of some tinctures and some edibles, which for me just doesn't work like it does for everybody else who it works for. So I was dealing with that and then trying to completely change how I intook medicine, and it was just kind of a disaster. So now I'm like kind of back towards the middle. Like I've gone all over the range of emotions, and this is where I kind of landed today. And guess what? Tomorrow I may feel differently. And next week when I record, I may say something like completely different then too. And we're all allowed to feel this way. We're all allowed to feel one way 1 minute and one way the next second. Because like I said, we're really being honest. Nobody's dealt with this before. We learn coping mechanisms and we learn how to go through things by going through things. Right, so I'm really good at dealing with like sickness and people passing away because that's what I was surrounded by growing up. Still doesn't make it fun. I just have coping mechanisms. I know what's going to happen. I know kind of even like a grieving process. I feel like I can understand that. None of us have any idea what's happening now. So every day we're met with like uncertainty, not just uncertainty of like, what's this invisible monster? Because that's what it feels like we're all running from something we can't see. But it's like financial security. It is the security of the future. A lot of people have things planned. It's all of those things. And we have no idea how to deal with these emotions. And I appreciate everyone who is putting their thoughts out there, telling their stories, sharing their examples, because this is when we need to talk to one another. This is when we need to story tell. This is what works for me. Maybe this will work for you. And that's why I'm being very honest and open about how bad I'm struggling. Anxiety and depression mixed in with this makes it really tough. And so I'm there for you in that. And I want you to tell your story and tell your friends and tell your family how you are making sure that you're staying mentally healthy and physically healthy, that we're checking in on our loved ones. Man, even if you've not talked to someone, you should just check in on them. It could mean the difference. In fact, I will take my own advice, and I'm going to reach out to someone today who we have a long sordid history of a friendship. And so I'm going to reach out and just check on him and see how he's doing. So do that. Know that you can have all your emotions. And the biggest thing is not just being kind to ourselves during these emotions, but kind to one another when you see someone experiencing something different. We're all at different levels in this, and we all have different experiences, and it's hitting others faster than it's hitting some others, and some people already have family members that are sick, and so we just need to take a deep breath. And when someone's struggling, or when they appear callous and cold, or when they're making jokes, just know they're somewhere else on this like road of whatever this COVID-19 pandemic road is. And so we just need to have a little love and kindness with one another. I want to share what I think is beautiful news. So Peake ReLeaf worked at the MMCC for 3 years or 4 years. Let me make sure that, she was the director of operations, and she passed away from cancer. So she was there for 3 years. And she spent her entire 3 years, 2 of them, which she did have cancer, helping thousands of patients to learn about the medical cannabis program. And so this was posted both by Laurie Dotson and by Aaron Shepard. And so I just wanted to read some exciting news about a bill that has been passed that eventually will be signed, but things are a little crazy right now. So, but anyway, Maryland medical cannabis patients. Did you know that House Bill 870 passed Maryland legislation before session suddenly was forced to adjourn due to COVID-19? HB 870 is the Maryland Compassion Fund, recently renamed the Peake ReLeaf Act. How beautiful. The bill is sitting on Governor Hogan's desk where it should sit until we get through this. But what I thought was so exciting is that every licensee holder in the industry has agreed to fund that Compassionate Care Act. And so I'm thankful for that. You can learn more about it by, you can look at Laurie Dotson's Facebook page, or Aaron has great knowledge on this as well. But essentially, the original bill authorized the Department of Health to adopt regulations to impose fees on medical cannabis businesses to fund the Compassionate Use Fund. And then they went through and rearranged it to where it made more sense and how it's going to work today. And so they're thinking that this will roll out early 2021. However, don't hold anybody to any dates with that. But how awesome is that, and how much of an honor for the work that Peake did that this was named for her, especially for the compassion that she had. And I know that we interviewed her. We did a great story on her, and she knew this plant could help people. And so that is some amazing news in the cannabis industry. Sorry, I'm so weepy today. See? Some days are just better than most. Yesterday, I didn't cry once. So I hope everyone is staying sane, being safe. Whether you believe it or not, stay the fuck inside. Go out and exercise, maintain your distance, wash your hands, all the things people are saying, like just keep echoing all of those things. And while we're doing that, my commitment is to continue to bring on guests and interviews that are not only, I think you probably have seen a little bit of a change, not only talk about medical cannabis, but for such a time that we're in now, things that are relevant and things that can be entertaining and teach us some lessons. And so I am so excited to introduce our guest today. It is Spencer Horsman and his wife Caroline. They own Illusions Bar and Magic Show in Fed Hill on Light Street. They've been open for 13 years. They're just about to celebrate their 1-year wedding anniversary this week. So happy anniversary, guys. But yeah, so it is a magic show bar in Fed Hill. And I am a huge fan of magic, being the geek that I am. And I was amazed that I never had been to his show until this January when Blair gave us for Christmas tickets to go see it. And so we went to the show, and, you know, it doesn't matter, magic, I'm going to be wowed. But what really stuck with me was what he said at the end of the show, why he did magic. And how for this moment in time, when we were all in that room together, we were part of something together. And we all shared that collective memory of this collective moment of magic. And as I sat there and I listened to him, I was like, how beautiful that I'm connected to every one of these people because we all went through this common experience together. I mean, I think if we really, really think about it with a positive light, so much light that it's maybe not even possible yet because we're going through the middle of it and such a hard part. But wouldn't it be awesome if the world was more connected because we all shared one common experience together? Something that doesn't happen often, right? Like we kind of have similar experiences, but nothing to this. And I thought that's what Spencer's message was so great. Like when we come together, when we have a moment together and we're connected, we can draw on that power. So yeah, it was my mission after that to have Spencer on the show, and he was actually going to be on in May, and then all this happened, and I couldn't have thought of a better time to talk about some magic than now. And so Spencer's not just a Baltimore magician. He actually was a semifinalist on season 7 of America's Got Talent. He returned back to season 2 of Champions. He has toured all over the country. I mean, there's amazing things that he's done. And I'm excited for him and his wife, who she is a magician as well, for them to talk to us a little bit about magic. Side note before we start, and I say this in the interview, and I'm just going to say it again. We have a lot of artists who are opening up their skills and their talents to us in ways that we have never seen before. For example, like I watched Garth Brooks. I've never been able to see one of his concerts. I've never seen him like perform live. I got to see him perform live, and I got to do that for free from my home, and how amazing that is. And there are local artists who, like Ian last week on the show, like Spencer and Caroline, who are opening up their talents to try to help us get through this. And we need to support them the best way that we can. And so we all are all uncertain about money. We are all uncertain about everything. If you see something that moves you, take a look at their lives and see if there's a way that you can help them. And so as part of this show, I'll enter in all the information for you guys to donate to Spencer and Caroline. They've had to shut everything down, their complete livelihood, put many projects on hold during this. And so while they gift us with magic, may we come together to support them. Thank you again to our show sponsors. And now on to the show. Well, I appreciate you guys being on today.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
So I do want to not only talk about what you do, because I just think that's amazing, but also how it's really been affecting you during this pandemic, and how I think it's cool that everyone is looking to artists to help heal, but we also need to make sure we're supporting those who are helping us at the same time. And so I'm excited that we get to talk to you guys about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when did you open Illusions Bar?
I opened March 10th of 2007.
We are in our lucky 13th year.
Yeah.
Oh, this actually This makes sense.
Yes.
Right.
We brought this about. I'm so sorry.
You should have skipped just to 14.
Bingo. 13th
Yeah.
floor. Yay.
And Spencer, your family is pretty well known in Fed Hill. So what was before
So
the
we're
illusions?
so it was originally my family's magic shop for 22 years.
Yeah.
It was the Yogi Magic Mart, or Kenzo's Party Place, when we officially opened. But I'm third generation down here in South Baltimore. My father's side, my father and his side of the family are from Baltimore. And then my mom's side is from Oklahoma. So they originally met in the circus. They were both clowns in the Ringling Brothers Barnum Bailey Circus. My father joined in '77. My mom came around the show in '79. And that's where they met. They got married, and then they left a couple years later, moved back to Baltimore. They started clowning here around Maryland. And then my father was picked up by McDonald's. And so then he was Ronald McDonald for McDonald's for 22 years by the time he retired. And then I was born in '86. So I, basically grew up around the business. My parents had a smaller location first that they had as a storefront to provide party supplies on Light Street, on the 1300 block of Light Street. And they used that as just like a storefront in order to promote the services of my parents being, party clowns, essentially. And then used to sell, odds and ends for party supplies before places like Walmart and Party City came about, and undercut pricing with all of that. But so then they migrated to this larger building here. Father bought that and turned it into a party supply store, magic shop, theatrical supply store for clowns and performers and things of that nature.
Do you remember when you, the first trick that you did or whatever it was where you realized, this is my future?
Yeah, my parents didn't force me into it. They allowed me to kind of just show interest in it, because they didn't want to be those parents who are like, oh, I'm a doctor, so you're going to be a doctor, or I'm a lawyer, so you're going to follow my footsteps. Yeah. They were happy that I took whatever route that I wished. So with that, I started showing interest in magic when I was around 4 years old. And I just, started asking them to show me the little basic tricks and things like that, which at that age is all you can do, is little self-working gimmick apparatus that you get in the magic kits and things of that nature. So I started showing interest in that. And then I started then demonstrating magic within the magic store to sell to customers, because that's essentially how you sell magic, is by showing the trick. So at an early age, I was getting that, as you call it, stage time, where you're able to perform for a real person, not just in front of the mirror practicing yourself. So I was getting used to just doing presentations and different things. And then at that age too, I started learning how to obviously do magic. So that was from ages 6 up until we closed the magic shop, that I, besides performing shows, I would also teach people how to do magic and train them in the apparatus and the trick that they had just purchased. But yeah, it was something that, again, my parents, they were happy that, obviously if I followed this route, this was something that they could assist me in, because this is what they knew, and they knew obviously all the other performers that could help guide me and coach me with different things. But they were also equally happy if I decided to go and pursue something else. But they were still adamant on me getting a great education. So they put me to a really nice private school here in Baltimore, the Park School. So I was there from first grade to senior year. But I didn't go to college, because after I graduated high school.
Neither did I.
Yeah, I took some time off and then decided, okay, that was a conversation I had with my father. Is what do you want to do? Do you want to then now go to college and pursue something academically, or do you want to now pursue performing full time? Because starting to perform, at such a young age, there were a lot of things that I had to ultimately turn down, because I didn't want to miss school. I enjoyed school. I was a straight A student. So for me, I loved both equally. I wasn't like, oh God, I want to be a performer and just keep skipping school and taking these contracts. I had to turn down a lot of work, because I refused to miss any more than a week of school at a time. Thankfully, being a private school, they were lenient on that. So the times that I had to be out of town for a week, they just go, all right, here's the homework for the week. Bring it back when you come back. All right, fine. And that was fine. But the longer contracts, for a month or 2 or 3 months, I couldn't take those, because I'd have to repeat a year. or start homeschooling or something like that, which I couldn't really homeschool because my parents were full-time performers as well with, McDonald's and all. My father, he was doing over 300 shows a year as Ronald McDonald, not including his other private shows as his own personal clown. Yeah. 300 a year was actually easy for him because when he was in the circus, he was doing over 500 shows a year. So 300 was easy.
So he was like the main Ronald McDonald? Like, did he go?
So there was different, yes and no. So there was multiple Ronalds all across the world, and they would be assigned to different regions. So the Ronald McDonald that was on TV that did all the commercials, that was one guy. He did all the national commercials, and that was it. And then you started having your different regions around the U.S. So the Ronald McDonald program originated in Oak Brook, Chicago. And so that was their first largest region because they sent Ronald out to do other live events and things of that nature. Then the second largest region covered D.C., Virginia, West Virginia. It covered over 500 stores and an additional 500 schools because McDonald's is heavily involved in educational programs, self-esteem programs, things of that nature with schools. So my dad was the main Ronald for that region. He covered
I feel like I met your dad. I had
Probably. He was, like I said, he started, so again, he didn't work Maryland though, because Maryland was actually a smaller region, which is interesting enough. Yeah. So Western Maryland, he would work like the outskirts of Maryland, which were closer again to places like D.C., Virginia, West Virginia.
Gotcha.
But there was, Ronald here, I forget what ranking Maryland was, but it wasn't nearly as high as my father's.
That's awesome. And then how did you and Caroline meet? And you can answer that. Wait, did I say it right? Carolyn or Caroline?
I'm Caroline, like the Neil Diamond song. Or Car-O-Line. But I'll respond to whatever, so.
Well, I'll call you Caroline. That works.
That's fine. We met at a magic convention in 2015 called Magic Live. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and he was working in Las Vegas rehearsing with Chris Angel. So we were both at this after party for the convention. He was talking to my friends, and I stopped. I saw my friend, and I stopped, and I turned to Spencer, and I was like, don't let him talk about CrossFit for the next 2 hours or something along those lines. And we just kind of bonded instantly from there. Yeah. From there, we both promptly forgot each other's names. So I spent like you do, I spent a week on Facebook waiting for a photo of him to pop up because I figured someone in my timeline will eventually.
We had so many mutual friends, the magic community.
Yeah, we had to have had, someone would have posted a photo with him. And my friend finally posted a photo of him, and I was like, oh, it's it. And I sent him a friend request immediately, and Spencer, about 5 minutes later, sent me a message that said, I would have friended you first, but I forgot your name. I was like, oh, okay.
Aww.
Nice. It was mutual.
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing.
That's perfect. And you guys just had an anniversary, right?
Yes, our anniversary is actually coming up on Wednesday.
Oh, 1 year?
So it's our 1 year paper anniversary, or the Corona.
1 year married, yeah, exactly. Yep.
It's my time now.
Really,
and we're throwing a themed.
Oh, go ahead. You're throwing a themed.
Sorry. Yeah, we're having a themed New Orleans dinner. We had food shipped in from New Orleans a week or so ago. It's been sitting in our freezer because we got married in New Orleans, and so we figured out we were going to go there for the anniversary. We were going to split some time between there and Salem. And Bowie, what are you doing, you nightmare? Cool. He's been chill all morning, and
it's all good. I mean, they know when you're recording because my dog's been coming in and out, and I'm like, get out of here, because he'll start barking. So what's it like having two magicians?
Well, you want to give it a little bit of history too. When you're, we talked about mine. You should talk about how you got into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I fell backwards into magic. My parents are both scientists, so I'm a screw up. When I was in school, I would kind of turn to sciences and those kinds of logical concepts to kind of give myself a break from theater school. And my parents noticed this and were like, okay, so she actually has a passing interest in science. It's just not the career choice. So they wanted to encourage me to continue to be in that world, so they would take me to a science and critical thinking convention in Las Vegas called the Amazing Meeting. And this was very heavily populated by magicians. So it was put on by a magician by the name of James Randi, who was one of the more famous escape artists in the world, who's this like little gentleman, bearded, looks kind of like Darwin meets Santa Claus somehow.
He's like 5 feet tall.
He's shrinking. He's 4 foot something now. I met, this is where I met Penn Jillette, and he had a conversation with me along the lines of, well, you're in theater and you are a girl and you would probably do very well if you started transitioning into magic. And when I started getting myself looking at magic from that perspective as a theatrical tool, it kind of opened up an entire world for me that I hadn't thought about before. So I really fell in love with magic when I was 22. And from theater school, I moved to Texas and started doing magic there. I went from Texas to Los Angeles to continue doing magic. And then I went to Colorado for a magic show, and I've just kind of been growing with that. It's been a big passion of mine. So Spencer and I come to magic from very different viewpoints. I come to it from using it as a storytelling device and kind of looking at it more as a well-rounded part of the theatrical experience. And Spencer kind of comes from the more traditional magical route, which is you start as a magician and then you figure out the theater stuff secondarily. Right.
Yeah.
You're more on the theatrical side, but you also kind of have the more traditional magic side of things.
Because my parents were also adamant in regards that magic is a very easy being a magician is a very easy title to give yourself. Like, you learn 3 tricks and you're like, oh, I'm a magician, something you can add to your profile description, whole 9 yards, really easily. But like, doesn't mean like you're a full-time performer, magician, entertainer, because again, the trick that you do is just one aspect of what we do. Again, like you said, it encompasses scripting and theater of all various sorts and choreography and actual like emotional connection with people, and it's more than just doing a trick at somebody.
Magic is very frequently treated as something that you do at a person rather than for a person.
Right.
Like, it's a look what I can do rather than let me take you on this journey with me.
Yeah, it's very much just something that you can just show off.
You're going in and out a little bit speaking. Yeah, I think it's when you turn your head a little bit. So if maybe just stay straight on just for a second.
Sorry, I'm distracted by the dogs.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all good. So what was the last thing that you said? Maybe we don't remember now.
So magic is often treated as one of these things that a person will do at you.
Oh yeah.
Versus a thing that someone will do for you, or bring you on the journey with them. So I think when you treat it as a recitation of skills, like, look what I can do, let me do this trick at you, you do a great disservice to the entire art form. You make it so it's not art anymore. You make it just as a skill set. There's
a lot of egos in magic and performing in general. I mean, it all aspects of entertainment, singers and comedians and actors. There's a lot of ego in it. And again, you can tell the difference between the ones who do it for them and the ones that do it ultimately as an art form to be shared with other people for their audiences. And that's something that, so and again, back to my parents, like, one, they were big on that connection, creating a connection with an audience, because being a clown is the most like self-sacrificing thing you can do as a performer. Like, being a clown is like you are strictly there to make a fool of yourself to entertain other people at the end of the day. But go back to like the whole theater aspect of it is, my parents were smart enough to educate me in going, okay, this is just a trick, but you need to learn who your character, what your voice is, what your character is. So be inspired by some magicians, great, but in general, watch a bunch of other performers that are not magicians. Watch actors, watch comedians, watch other circus performers, watch anybody that's a theatrical performer, because again, that's still theater and stage, and you can learn from that. A lot of magicians are terrible actors. A lot of magicians move like robots on stage. The ones that are smart have, taken dance lessons. The ones taken acting lessons. If you do comedy, they take an improvisation classes. Again, you learn those other skills, not just the trick. The trick is really the easiest part.
Man, I didn't even think about this.
Yeah.
I've been so like focused on like the stuff. It has to be the magic's the easy part.
Right.
Like to create your persona and to have people like connect with you. I mean, I've been to your show, so I understand. Like it's even from, I mean, I didn't know you were the bartenders before the show started, and someone pointed that out, and I was like, what? How is this? But I imagine that kind of all plays in to your show in getting ready for those connections.
Right. Which I like. I've had performer friends of mine come in and be like, I can't believe you bartend and you're running around here cleaning and doing things before your show. You guys are the performers, you're the talent. And I'm like, yeah, that's ego talking. Like, people love the fact that she's at the door. She's the first person they meet introducing. My father used to be the one at the front door checking people in, would set a certain tone and energy as soon as they walk in. And then even at the bar, I'm bartending. I don't announce who I am. I only let people ask. And even then, I still mess with them. I will still be like, oh, no, that's my cousin. Or do you do magic too? Do all the bartenders? I go, no, we just sling drinks. Like, I think it's just fun to keep them on their toes. Because for me, it's just another form of entertainment. It's something else to connect with people.
Our venue is very unique in regards to being a magic show because we don't disconnect ourselves from our audience. There's never a wall between our customers, our audience, and us. We try to make it like you are in our home and we're creating this well-rounded experience together, and you're here to be part of the night. And that's what we've aimed for, and that's what he's aimed for with his father.
Yeah. I mean, it totally does feel that way. I mean, I even felt like watching old Addams Family. Your dog is hysterical. He really wants behind you. He's
desperate to dig in there. I don't know.
I'm trying to take the squeaky toy. It's a squeaky toy he's trying to dig at.
I love it. It's perfect.
With the squeaky Death Star. I have a little squeaky Death Star toy that's back there, and he's going crazy.
Dogs are really the true champions of all these Zoom calls. Like every Zoom meeting I've been in, dogs are everywhere. It's just, and I think it's makes every day.
It's good for the viewing. It's good. Thanks. Everybody loves dogs. Somebody that doesn't like dogs, you can't trust them. Yeah.
I believe that. And if my dog doesn't like you, I don't trust you either, because he knows best.
Now, granted, our dogs are a little bit skittish and they'll bark at anybody, so there's that. But there's a fine line.
They don't bark at people as much as they do other dogs.
True.
Yeah. What? So, I think when I see magic happen, if I were to be a magician, probably one of my most favorite moments, if I'm thinking about it, would be others' reactions to when you do something. Like, how is that for you to see? Like, you've worked so hard, you've created this persona, this whole thing, and then, because I know how I react when I see magic, I'm literally like, what did you just do? So how is that for you guys when you start to see that? Like, I imagine that has to be the best feeling.
Right. Well, I mean, that's also the immediate, piece of information that the audience provides to you is whether or not they're enjoying themselves. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. There is a heavy argument of if you're, because we do like to think of like what we do as an art and can be elevated to an art form like anybody would for being a musician or like a painter style artist and whatnot. And, there are performances that we've both witnessed that definitely transcend that level of being like actual art. And we're just like, emotionally brought in, whole 9 yards, besides just even the wow factor of like, that was cool. How did you do that? And again, it also emotionally brings you in and whatnot. But that being said, a lot of artists will then, say, well, I just produce what I want. And if the audience likes it, great. If they don't, too bad. I'm producing what I want. Yeah, that's great if you can afford that. I think there's a point where like, if you're able to experiment with things that are crap and you're doing it just for you, then that's great. But ultimately you're making the audience happy. You're doing this for the audience. Yeah. You're not doing this for you. You're purposely setting out to entertain, to fool, to make laugh, whatever your end goal, emotional goal is. then yeah, them reacting is the number one way that we know, okay, this doesn't suck. And there's something there. So, I mean, it's a great feeling, obviously, but it's also a practical response, too, for us to learn from.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true. I'm really looking at this from, like, the participant's perspective and just how, when you take back the curtains on any kind of craft like this, it's kind of awesome to see it is way more involved, way more training, way more things than we can even imagine.
Yep.
How long does it take you guys to perfect a trick? Like from a simple one to maybe what you performed on Friday night?
Again, it depends. There's certain things that if it's pure sleight of hand, that takes longer because it's something that you physically, it relies on you to accomplish, right? It's not the cards, anything like that. It's strictly you going, okay, over and over and over again, just like you're playing a musical instrument or playing a sport, right? You're manipulating an object, and that just only comes from repetition and to become efficient. Well, there's other things that are gimmicked, right? A box or some sort of prop that does the trick for you. So all you have to do is like press this one little place at the right time, and it does it for you. Now, again, that's what the whole, as I going back to before, is that it then doesn't matter about the trick. The harder part is the scripting, is the presentation. What am I trying? What sort of story am I trying to tell with this trick that I'm doing? As opposed to, a lot of scripts for magic tricks are literally just commentary of what you're doing. So like, oh, I want you to pick a card. Now I'm going to shuffle it, and here I'm going to find it. Okay, that's cool, maybe visually for a moment, but there's no emotional hook. Even if you come up with some sort of BS story about like why this card is being lost, and this card is special and emotional, it still adds a little bit more just context and emotional pull to it, as opposed to just being like, here's my commentary, that at that point you might as well not talk, they can just see what you're doing.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be kind of boring to just listen.
And it's the same thing too with also even magicians who don't speak. So for instance, like illusionists who are on stage performing, they don't speak. They speak in between routines, but typically they're doing something that's choreographed to music. Now, that's something that's always been done for hundreds of years during performances. But the person to really take that to the next level, and you can watch this through like YouTube videos and things like that, was David Copperfield. David Copperfield, he spoke, in between routines in order to introduce what he was going to do, but he still is a master at picking the right music, because that portrays everything that he is trying to put forth during that routine. And then he kind of he changes the magic to almost fit the music, because the music is so good. And you're able to, again, you don't always have to speak, but you still are creating a story. You're still creating an emotional arc for people to follow.
I think if you want one of the best examples of a silent routine, it's got to be, you have to YouTube this piece later because you can see it on YouTube and there's interviews about it. Shadows that Teller does. There's no music to it. There's no introduction to it.
And no speaking.
There's no speaking.
Yeah.
It is just Teller presenting this trick. And it is I think because there is nothing between you and the performance, there's no scripting, there's no music to distract you. You're just seeing this very pure, somehow this story is still so clear. And I think that's what we should all aspire to get to. We understand his character in this piece, and we understand the piece that he's presenting. And it's just the most moving piece of magic that I've seen as an individual trick. And his character has always been silent, and it's always been heavily rooted in mime work and pantomime and clowning. And I think there's something to be said for someone that can express everything about themselves without anything. When you're able to see the raw person in that kind of piece, and it's another level.
I feel like that's harder. Like,
absolutely,
it's extremely hard. Like, there's so much involved in it. Like, you see, he's a very So Teller comes at magic in the same way I do. He's a Shakespeare person who now does magic, essentially. I mean, he did magic, but like he's obsessed with Shakespeare and like how magic worked into that and how magic worked into classical theater. And you can see that kind of attention to detail in his magic. And I think that's
He's like basically your silent comedian, modern silent comedian, because he's able to portray everything without speaking, with pantomiming, which is something that's a lost art nowadays. Obviously besides Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, all those silent comedian stars, that's something you want to be able to portray. Is if you can't speak, if people can also, again, that comes from my father's work in the circus, is that he, being in the show, being his boss clown, he would have moments during the transition of acts, with setting up for the, lion cages or the trapeze that took a couple minutes, that he would be the only performer in the middle ring for 5 to 7 minutes. Now, they never mic'd the clowns. The clowns were always silent. Now he's in again, this is Ringling, so he's not in a ring of 500 people. He's in an arena of 10 to 40,000 people. And this is before they had video projection. One human and 40,000 people, and still able to convey a story in some sort of emotional roller coaster without speaking. It's an amazing skill to be able to have. And so again, it's one of those things that, depending what type of magician that you're looking to be, you need to then make sure that you can still have this storyline with as little as possible. People try to hide behind many other things and all the flashing lights and all the dancing and all the fancy outfits and stuff. And it's just like, no, less is more. Especially with magic, magic's already a weird thing because it's not natural, and nobody knows what to expect. And there's an old quote in magic saying, magic is not confusion. And so a lot of magicians, because they're not, but it's true, because a lot of magicians themselves aren't clear on what they're trying to portray. So then if you don't know what you're trying to portray, then how do you expect an audience to follow what you're doing?
I mean, I think that's where the art comes in. I'm sure I have opinions that anyone can be a writer, anyone can be a singer, anyone can do anything. It's the time and dedication to learn the nuance of what you just talked about.
Devil's in the details.
It is very true. So I wanted to talk about one of the things, I mean, I adored everything about your show and I was very excited to watch it. But the thing that stuck out to me the most was actually what you say at the very end, and which is why I wanted you guys on the show, especially the timing of this worked out, I think, perfectly for what is happening in the world. So can you share with us like what it is that you end the show on, about why it's like why you do magic, right?
Yeah. And it's, again, coming down to the root of being a performer. I specifically didn't get into performing, and neither did my parents, in order to become famous and rich and all these things. I'm obviously, you want notoriety so that way people come to your shows. You want people to hire you. You want people to buy your tickets to see you. That's baseline. But like, that's obvious. You need to pay your bill somehow. But outside of like living within our means and living within my means, I'm a performer to be a performer and to entertain, to provide people with an escapism, because especially nowadays, and now we're all kind of sharing the same sort of just anxiety because of the pandemic. But even outside of that, you never know what any individual person is going through at any given time in their lives. And that can be obviously a stranger on the street who is just very like, hey, how are you? I'm good. And they can be, dying inside. And then even close friends who are still not comfortable enough to share with you how you feel about certain things. So during the show, it's wonderful to get people to come out of that little bubble of theirs for a minute and, trigger that release of dopamine either through, again, whatever tool it is at my disposal that I'm looking to entertain with. So be either a magic trick or a goofy joke or an emotional story that, because again, I am extremely comical and off the wall, but then I'm also extremely open and raw about, my father passing away from cancer. And, I've had a lot of people who, it really, it shocks people that I'm that open with my life, because he just always, entertainers are always just, you only see them being on stage, and that's it. And as Caroline mentioned, with our entire venue, it's not just about the show, it's the entire experience itself. You're coming into our home, you're interacting with all of us, there's no walls between anybody. And, the reaction and conversations that I get to have after the show are amazing, because then they realize, wow, you're human too. And if you were willing to share this with us as strangers, then we have no reason to hold back from you. Because before the show, people find out oh, you're the magician. And they're even shy to ask me for a photo. And I'm like, yeah, you can take a photo. But then afterwards, everybody's much more comfortable to then hey, can I have a selfie with you? Yeah. Can I ask you this and that? And, even though after the show, I offer to do more magic for people, 90% of the time, it just comes down to then people wanting to chat with us and just know that oh, okay, you all are human. You have a different lifestyle than what we obviously are familiar with, but hey, what else makes you guys tick? And they then want to know more about us and this and that. The people that I've had come up to me after the show and openly say, I currently have cancer, or my parents just passed away from cancer and things like that, because I shared that about my father, is amazing. And you would never get that from a stranger on the street any other time of day, in any other really, in any other profession, unless you were specifically talking about that one specific subject. So, being able to bring together the mix of people that I also get during my shows, because again, I get everybody. I get every, young, old, rich, poor, race, religion, ethnic group, background, sexuality. I get everybody attending the show, which is great. Because again, magic is extremely universal. You can go anywhere and, do magic, and it's fairly accepted and understood, even if you don't speak the same language. I've done that, and it's fine. It freaks some people out in other countries a little bit more so than others, probably, because they still believe in real magic. But besides that level, everybody still appreciates it to a certain just deep instinctual level. And so because of that too, I'm able to get people to then mix and mingle with people outside of their normal social circle.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. People usually leave our show making friends with their neighbors. People will bond over jokes in the show with each other. So it goes beyond just our impact. It's the impact that they have on each other is really cool to watch. That's one of my favorite things to watch.
It's like a collective experience you create.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was one show a couple weeks ago where I had a family that I put into 2 rows, and a 20-something came in, and he was the show was sold out, and he was like, "Oh, I'm just by myself. Is there any way I can get in?" And I ended up being able to sit him with this family, and this family basically adopted this 20-something because he was a traveling nurse, so he was only in town for a few weeks, and he didn't have any friends here. And this family was like, "We're going to take you out for crabs, and we're going to bond with you, and you're basically our child." And I was like, "This is cool. We brought these people together."
Yeah, something like that. Which, considering our culture is becoming so now, just you dropped up behind the couch. Good job.
We have 6 we'll give them
we're in such a a split country now, just between there's just we're going backwards in regards to just everybody get along, and so anything we can do to pull people together in order to so there's multiple reasons we do what we do and why we do it like we do. Like I said, it's easy to set up a show somewhere and just say, "Oh, magic show," and sell tickets and be done with it. But we're trying to go deeper than that.
We as a species only survive through connectivity, and we as performers are actually able to facilitate that a little bit. We're able to get people to connect with us and connect with each other.
Well, you're breaking down walls with people, like you said, if you're able to get someone into a state where they're able to share maybe something they've not shared before, that changes the course of their life. It really does. And maybe it doesn't seem so big, but man, that's why the arts are there, because they're life changing for people.
Absolutely. As we tell people, we're more than a magic show here. This is a whole full experience from the moment you arrive to when you leave.
Are you guys similar as a couple on stage and off stage?
Oh yeah, that's pretty much it.
Our characters on stage are just more exaggerated versions of us, and just
We just annoy
being
each other.
weirder. Yeah, exactly. There's certain things we tone down from like behind the scenes to on stage, and other things that we accentuate on stage versus what we normally do. But we're both nerdy, weird, Addams Family-esque, people that like weird things, and so that's, for us, it's more genuine that way, because again, it really, it's such a weird cliche and an issue that magicians have, is that they all try to emulate each other. They kind of go, oh, they see one magician doing something in a specific way, scripting, movement, and all that, and they go, oh, well, that works for him, he's getting a great response, so I can do the same thing. It's like, no, you can fake it for a little while, but it's not genuine, it's not you. So either you need one of two things. You need to know who you are as a person, so then you can lean into that heavily on stage as your character. Or if you're an amazing actor, then you create a character that you can hone into 100%. But there's no middle ground, because anything in the middle of that is garbage.
I will say even the best actors, they're only playing the facets of their own personality. So everything you portray is still going to be part of you. So you need to figure out how those parts work on stage or in front of a camera, in front of people, how this part of you is able to portray this thing that you need to portray. And the best people at doing this are the people that understand themselves the best, or the people that are the most willing to do the work to learn who they are.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'm trying to distract him back. Ow! No scratching. No scratches.
He's like, I am over this. When is this done so you can play with me?
Chinese cresteds also grow their nails differently than all of the dog breeds. So they're more like cat claws instead of normal. And you can't trim them as short, so they suck.
They're sharp, right?
They're terrible.
He's also still a puppy, so he doesn't really understand how his limbs work yet.
Yeah. So he loves digging at you, and he'll scratch at you to get your reaction. Yay!
Did you guys were you able to get a little magic together to do on video today?
Oh, I can do a quickie thing. That's the thing too. Is I'm such and we're both live performers. So it's just this is becoming such a weird transition for us. That I'm trying to create content for our Patreon page. I mean, I'm going back to my roots though with Patreon in regards to teaching magic. So I've started a weekly teach-in with our Patreon page.
We did an Instagram.
What page are you talking about? Say that slower. Your something page?
Oh, this is our Patreon.
Patreon page. Gotcha.
Yep.
So Patreon it's basically like a monthly subscription to help us. So you have different tiers. It's between $5 and $20 that you can pledge to pay once a month. And through those tiers, you get different content. At the $20 tier mark, you get a magic lesson at least every other week. And you get to see tours of our house. You get tours of our oddities collection. You get to see magic tricks that way. And any new merchandise we premiere in that page first before we premiere it on our actual shop pages.
Have parents started to reach out to you guys? I would think.
Not as many parents yet. It's mainly just it's a couple. I have a couple teens that have, but kids with parents and are parents with kids yet.
We are working on a concept of how to teach magic, because we'd like to teach magic in a way where people need to actually get the tools in their house. Not everyone may have a deck of cards. Not everyone might have cups and balls, obviously. So we're trying to work out a system where we have a magic shop that people can buy stuff from online. Not ours, but a secondary seller like Murphy's Magic or Penguin Magic. They buy that magic trick, and then we walk them through how to use it. And that way we can kind of help them tailor what they want to learn to themselves versus just doing stock stuff with cards. Because not everybody wants to learn card tricks.
Right.
You are
okay. And I'm going to put all this stuff up because I did not know you had, what is it again, a Patreon page?
Oh, yes, a Patreon.
I've never heard of this before. I'm going to send it to all my homeschooling
friends. It's great,
friends.
especially, a lot of, thank you. Yeah, I mean, Patreon's great for artists in general. So, I mean, a ton of people that have podcasts, people that have YouTube video. I mean, it's all another means of, just a different, means of creating content.
It's also a very good way to support artists right now. And we every artist I know is suffering. It's very hard on us financially, and we can't create in the way that we were before. So everyone's scrambling to figure out how do we continue to create art for the world in this situation.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I just want to reiterate, like, this affects artists in a very real way. Like, you guys had a weekly show. I know you're building something up in Salem right now, right?
Yeah, right. So that's all being put on hold, obviously. So.
Yeah.
The weekly show here, we were building a magic shop, museum, and theatrical thing in Salem, and that's going to have to change. And it's, we're in a position where we're a lot better off than a lot of people in the arts community, in that we won't starve, but we're
not yet. Nothing's infinite.
Okay.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
That's fine.
There's still a finite level there.
But it's still like, it's heartbreaking that we're gonna have to change plans. I don't want to complain about anything, but like, it's still it's
okay to complain. It sucks. Like, I'm okay. Like, I have decided to roll through moments. Like, I'm really, I have a podcast centered around cannabis, and
awesome.
All the month around 420 was, what I mean? 42020. It was tons of events, and all of that gets canceled, but you just kind of like think like, I'm going to sit my ass down and we're going to all figure out how to do this a little bit different.
Yeah. I feel like this is a very good time to be doing more stuff about cannabis.
Right. Everybody's going to be stressed and anxious. So
we will. I will say we went from illegal to essential real quick. Yeah,
I can understand that.
Right? That was amazing. I'm so sad I don't have my card though. So it's
like, I'll send you information on how to get it so you can. And you guys literally have dispensaries within walking distance.
Right. We got like 2, 3. There's I got the one on the Cross Street, and then the one on Key Highway, and then
you have one up in Mount Vernon. That's like, those are the 3 closest, like all up in a row for us.
Well, we can get some marijuana.
Yeah, there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Can make magic and hide.
It makes it better. Actually, I'm sure if you would have known this in the beginning, when I walked into your show, probably a cloud of smoke followed me, because me and my friends all had like...
Oh, we always, it's an interesting, performing for audiences, it is... because I'm still heavily, obviously, at a bar. So we serve liquor. So that is a certain mentality that comes with drinking. And hey, are we done? God, you guys have somewhat been patient. And so, working in a crowd that's sober versus one that's been drinking, that's a whole different energy. So it becomes, people a little bit looser, or everything that comes with being under the influence of alcohol specifically. It becomes more of a nightclub style, comedy club style mentality. And oh my God, these kids are insane. And that's a whole science in itself, again, as audience management. So it is interesting, though, of then how it also changes with people that are under the influence of cannabis.
Because we are amazed by everything.
Well, and so you can, there's different elements of, because this is magicians that I've talked to in other states, in like Colorado, where it's fully like recreationally. Here it's only medicinal still. So it's not as many people are openly using it, but places like California and Colorado, what you do now and how you present your magic has shifted some, where, there's a bigger emphasis and things that are visually stimulating. Obviously, you got to maybe change the way you speak a little bit different too, so it's not as complicated, slow things down. So it's an interesting shift also in audiences as a performer with how these things are becoming legalized and coming about. So it's fascinating. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, that is true. I bet that's something most people don't think about. Like, you're looking at your audience at every single level of who they are as a human. to be able to get a reaction out of them.
Yeah, that being said, I've definitely purposely have brought up some people that, I know during the intermission, they went outside and got baked, so I bring them on stage to help me during the second half.
always have a very good time.
And they have a great time because then again, the contrast of like somebody that's baked versus drunk and that bouncing off of each other is amazing.
It's fun.
Yeah, it is a much different world.
Yeah. We had we have a guest performer that comes in sometimes and he's like, Illusions is an odd space because your audience is like pretty wasted by the time they get into the show. So it's a different management.
Right. Where like normally like in the theater, you have, your bottles of beer that you get and sip on and some wine maybe, and everybody's there very polite. But like this here, people are on dates. It's a lot more of a loose feel, which is what we want. We don't want that stuffy, like typical theater feel to it. Because, people are out to just have a good time.
Didn't you guys win best date spot or something?
Yes, the first year that we opened the city paper, that here's our other puppy. So we won best first date bar, and that has basically stuck with us. I mean, we've got Reddit threads on us about like, hey, where do you take a first date and whatnot. And then because of that success too, and having so many first dates at our place, I have now, not counting ours, we've done 10 proposals during my show to people who had their first date at our venue and then wanted to make it special for like the proposal or like their 1 year anniversary or something. She's not tolerating your crap. Oop, there you go. She's gonna kill you.
She's
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you want to do some magic?
Sure, we can do something. We can do a magic.
Monkey.
We can do a magic. All right, so I have to keep as fair as I can here on screen so people don't think that I am switching anything or cheating. What is this on the floor?
I just spilled water.
Oh God. Okay, I was like, that's the weirdest P mark ever. Okay. Let's do this. Yeah. Stop it! You're a nightmare. All right. So deck of cards. 52 cards in a deck of cards. You're familiar with playing cards first and foremost. I guess I should have specified that. Okay, good. Yeah. So obviously we can't have you physically selecting one right now, for two reasons. One, social distancing, but also there's a technology between us. So at this point, the only option is to have you mentally think of a card, which really is the fairest way of having a card selected. Now, before you do that, though, statistically, you ask somebody just to think of a card, the most common cards that come up, aces, court cards, things like that. So ace of spades, queen of hearts, always popular choices. So move away from those. Think of one that you think most people really wouldn't value in the hand of cards or even consider be relatively boring, okay? Joker does not count, all right? All right, perfect. So I'll give you a moment for that. 3, 2, 1. And what card first time were you thinking of?
Well, the first time it was the Queen of Hearts.
Oh, see, there you go. So statistically, we always went with that. But you changed your mind. So if you changed it, all right. So what did you finally end up with?
A 9 of spades.
Okay. Now, as I always like to give people an option, I already took away that one first gut instinct from you, so I'm sorry about that. But would you like to change your mind, or do you want to keep with that 9 of, what did you say, spades?
Yeah. I'll change it. I'll change it.
You want to change again, so third time's the charm.
3 of clubs.
3 of clubs. Okay, so we went to the other end of the spectrum and changed suits. All right. Does this have any sort of emotional connection to you, or you just strictly...
I don't really know. It just popped in my head.
There, alrighty. So again, no sleeves, obviously, nothing hiding there. Keeping cards here all on screen. Now, before we started this, I took one card in the pack and I reversed it inside of the pack as a prediction for something that I thought was hopefully going to occur here during this little experiment with you. So one card reversed in the pack. And you changed your mind multiple times.
I did.
Queen of Hearts, 9 of Spades, but ultimately the...
3 of Clubs.
3 of Clubs. Yes, it worked! Miracle!
What?
So, No cameras.
Just
Nobody
like,
there that I
wait a
pre-planned this with.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Guess. It's just 1 out of 52. Not that big of a deal. But it's
I
not
mean,
bad. So.
amazing statistics. I appreciate you guys coming on today.
Thank you.
I'm going to put all this stuff on Way to Help You guys. Literally, I mean, this is going to be a long time for us, right? I think. And so hopefully not, but
at least
I hope
another
we all,
month at minimum.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So,
but most likely longer.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that there are people like you who are switching things up. I mean, Friday night was awesome to watch. Are you guys going to do that again, you think?
We're going to do something. We're going to continue doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
We might do it every other week for a little while, and we'll see if we maybe do it.
We're trying to see how to do it because, again, it's such a shift. Also, not only is it a shift in the medium, so live versus digital here, but also it's going to be a shift in the type of magic too, because as you saw from attending my show here, our show is interactive. It's not only like, are we trying to emotionally pull people in? It's interactive. I have people on stage with me, picking cards, doing things. So that now too is a shift in just the style, and though that changes the presentations, that changes the techniques, that changes a lot of things. So it's a whole shift all the way around.
Yeah.
So we'll see how we can evolve with it, and we're gonna try and roll with it the best we can. That's all we can do.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm going to put all this stuff in the show notes so people know how to donate so that they can keep in touch with you. I appreciate you guys bright and early on a Monday morning.
Of course.
Yes, perfectly fine.
Thanks.